And so you find that intellect, reason, and rationality are the primary forces that kind of control literature, art, and politics. And then at the same time, neoclassicism is happening. And neoclassicism, the prefix neo, meaning new, and the suffix classicism, meaning classics, is rising. And so neoclassicism has to do with reviving the ancient classic works of Greece and Rome. So basically, it's bringing back to life classic styles of Greek and Roman literature and art. So you've got a couple of things happening in this time period. And really the neoclassicism was like late 1600s to late 1700s, so they kind of like overlap and they're kind of like happening simultaneously. And then Romanticism is like, ew, I don't want to be a part of either of those things. Romanticism completely rejects intellect, reason, and rationality and classics. So we're going to talk a lot about how it rejects those things. And it's really important to understand this stuff because it's like, well, why did the movement arise in the first place? There was all sorts of things happening on the societal level and the cultural level to make us come into being. So that's what we have to think about. So I mentioned this then briefly, but America in the 1600s had a lot to do with Puritan life. And so this was dominated by, wilderness, superstition, and overwhelming fear. They didn't know what was beside them. We're going to study the Puritans when we study Arthur Miller's The Crucible. So you'll understand this more then, but that way of living was one ruled by religious doctrine, so it was very rules-based, and it was sort of very dogmatic and very restrictive for a lot of people, especially women. And then also, on the other side of that, sort of like contradicting that, is this vast fear of the unknown. Like maybe the devil is in the wilderness and we don't know, and it might come and attack our village at any time. And so therefore, cue witch trials. But we'll get there. And so those two movements I just talked about, the Age of Reason and neoclassicism, were sort of like a total reaction to this. So I put on the board, in the box on the left, it says Puritans, and then it says Romanticism, and then it says Reason and Classics, like at the bottom of that box up on the upper left. And that's because Romanticism is sort of like an in-between of both of those things. So I talked about how Puritanism has this like superstition, fear of the wilderness, and sort of like spirituality, religious thing. Okay, but then there's, on the other side of the spectrum, it's like reason, calculated logic, rationality. Romanticism is sort of the in-between. So, what did Romanticism emphasize? Like as a movement, what did it value? What were the primary features? Rebellion against convention. And this makes sense if you think about all of the things we just said about intellect, reason, rationality. It also makes sense that it would be a rebellion against convention when you consider the social and historical context, because we're going to talk about how at this time period, America was really a brand new nation. And so we're sort of like fledgling for identity, and we're trying to figure out who we are. And we want to we're very anti-British at the moment. So we don't want to do convention. We want to sort of find our own way. So it's very rebellion against convention. It also values imagination, emotion, and intuition. And there's a strong appreciation for the natural world, especially within a particular branch of Romanticism called Transcendentalism. I'll mention that later. So also, the primary feature, if I was going to distill this down into one thing, you can't really, but the primary feature that drives much of Romantic work during the time period is individualism. Okay? So I sort of tried to draw and write this on the board over there. There's like a list on the left, and it's all of the things that were valued pre-Romanticism. So intellect, reason, rationality, classics, rules, religion and society, order, conformity, balance, and a mechanistic way of life. And then on the right-hand side, that's all the stuff that Romanticism values. So at the center, you see individualism. And then all around it, we're going to get to a lot of this, but it's sort of, everything is the exact opposite of all the stuff on the left, which you can really see like why this is a reaction to and a reaction against neoclassicism and the Age of Reason. Okay. Any questions so far? Russell?
Let me go back to the neoclassicism.
Neoclassicism? Yeah. Does anybody have questions, since that was already a lot of information? So anybody wondering anything about the Age of Reason, or neoclassicism, or Romanticism? Because next I'm going to talk more about sort of what was going on in history, okay, and like what was going on socially, and then you'll understand how a lot of like the prominent themes and subject matter really pop up in Romanticism. It's all based on context. Like, just like now, you know, whatever's going on now, probably somebody is writing about it, and it's very influenced by the stuff that's going on around it. So I don't know what our movement is now that we're living in, but it's going to be something. Is that good, Russell? We can always come back to it then later at the end, or I can help you sort of more with the definition. So we're going to talk about historical, cultural, and social influences. This is a real time of tension and contradiction, kind of historically, because a lot of stuff is happening at the same time. So you've got the Enlightenment, people are moving, you know, Age of Reason, they're moving towards this rationality, this logic, and neoclassicism was bringing back the classics, and then Romanticism was like, no, I don't want convention or classics, I want individuality and freedom of expression. And then, so that's why it's a revolt against things like reason, rationality, order, and conformity, which is also illustrated on the board. I think a good quote that summarizes this, or all Romanticism kind of, is good literature should have heart, not rules. So how do we bring the feelings back into art and literature and stay away from strict rules and dogma? So then the other big thing that's happening is that there's this big frontier. Does anyone know what a frontier is, or what I mean when I say like the frontier of the U.S.? Jackson?
If you go west, it's like open and like destiny awaits.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Destiny awaits. So imagine, you know, you're in one of the settlements on like the east coast of the U.S. Okay, the Puritans have come in and settled, and now there's a new wave of settlers, and they're thinking, okay, there's all of this western part of our whole country that we haven't explored yet, and that's daunting and terrifying, but it's also exciting and so freeing because we have all this space. Like, we're not confined by Europe anymore, by Britain. We're not confined anymore. We can find our own way, and again, that's terrifying, but it's also exhilarating. And so you see a lot of that optimism and sort of idealism in Romantic writings. There's this strong desire to create a unique American identity because we are free. The Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776. And then we have the American Revolutionary War going on, and after that, we're trying to figure out who we are as a country. I'll show a little video clip about that in a little bit. But there is tension then, because what's happening is like we have this revolutionary ideal, which is like we can be anything we want to be, except also there's a lot of inequality and slavery is happening. And the agrarian South is becoming very, problematic. And so you still have a lot of issues when it comes to race and gender and class, and there's a lot of inequality, but yet there's this like optimistic idealism, like we can be anything we want to be, let's celebrate our freedom, except the minorities are saying, I'm not really feeling that freedom, right? So there's tension and there's contradiction. Industrialization, so the Industrial Revolution is starting, and that means that we've got the agrarian South, okay, so agriculture rules, and then we've got a more industrialized North. And so there's tension there, literally between the North and the South, but that also pops into the writing and the art that we see during this period. So see, everything has its little subtle influence on this. So anyway, it's really just a contradictory time. Other things that are happening socially and culturally are that, first of all, there's copyright laws now that have been put into place, which means that you can now become a writer as a career. People can't just steal work and just publish anything and just do whatever. They can actually publish their own work and have it copyrighted, and they can sell it. And so therefore they can make a living. Additionally, women are becoming more, well, there's more women reading. So readership is going up amongst women. And that's because you have this movement where women are wanting to expand their minds. And so more women are reading, which changes things. So now maybe literature is going to aim to, attract women, whereas before it really was more aimed toward men. There's also the political independence has been finally settled, as I said. So, you have a strong national pride, but we're also self-conscious because we're not our own country yet. It's like we're not our own human. We're still figuring out who we are in the universe. So that's contradictory. We're very anti-British, which means that we're anti-convention at this time. We're trying to figure out what did American mean in relation to literature? That's like the basic question of like any movement. It's like, well, what of American literature? It's like, well, what is it? What is this country? What is our national identity in terms of literature? And what's the influence of both? So there's a growing leisure class, which means that more people are wealthy, so more people have free time, because when you're wealthier, you do less. And so you have more conveniences, which opens up a lot of time. So more people are reading. That's something. And they have time to read things that are really complex, like Edgar Allan Poe. Because there is a rising leisure class and more women are reading, they can sit down and they can take their time and digest Edgar Allan Poe like a glass of wine, instead of just being well, I have to hand wash all the laundry and hand dry all the laundry, and I don't have time to sit and read a book, right? But now there's more time because there's more conveniences. Okay. So all of this shapes what we see in the writing. What's the impact then? So it's not only writing. I've been talking about literature, but we have to acknowledge that all of the stuff that I just said influences music, art, architecture, and criticism, and also politics, in addition to literature. So this isn't just about literature. It's happening. I just wanted to say that because people are like, well, what is this movement outside of literature? It affects all types of art. It's not just literature, but literature is art. So, I think some of you might be interested in the art pieces from this time, especially Emma, right? So I think I'd like to bring in some romantic pieces of art so that we can look at that as well throughout this unit. But specifically, we're in an American literature course, so obviously literature is our focus. So, transcendentalism. Transcendentalism. Transcend means to rise above. Transcendentalism is all about nonconformity, individualism, seeking solace in nature.